just imagine that tomorrow morning when you wake up, you learn that the authorities in your region have decided to force you to evacuate your residential home, to convert them into quarantine areas for the COVID-19. How would you react? For the past 2.5 years, we have been living with this pandemic, which is affecting our lives on a daily basis. We do not remember, people of our generation, anything so bad, although there have been epidemics in different parts of the world in different times. And every time, people have been very ill at ease, and whenever governments come with measures that affect us, there have been a lot of resistance. But governments have to take certain measures. They have to make sure that they're saving lives today. They have to make sure that they're going to be saving lives for tomorrow. They have to be taking some measures to ensure that the socio-economic situation will be all right. But we, as citizens, even in democratic countries, we don't like our human rights to be tampered with. We have fought so hard to win these rights. In the Western world, in England, for example, there were 3 important steps that I'm sure you all remember. There was, first of all, the Great Charter, the Magna Carta, in the 13th century. Then there was the Habeas Corpus Act. In both cases, the idea was to limit the absolute power of the sovereign. So we were fighting for citizens, basically. Maybe not all citizens in those days. Then we had the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights, which is now considered as being the foundation of Anglo-American jurisprudence. And it has even had an impact in France during the Revolution in 1789, when the French adopted la Déclaration des droits de l'homme et du citoyen in 1789. So we have been fighting for our individual rights. We don't like people to come pour un oui, pour un non, just to tell us you have to wear masks, you have to keep distance, you have to be vaccinated, you have to do this and that, and then we feel that we are not free anymore. However, in that particular time of the pandemic, we have this debate going on about whether fundamental human rights are more important than community rights. Some human rights defenders say group rights are very dangerous. You know, it is important in this context to remember what are these rights. Basically, we have the United Nations that has adopted 2 international covenants, one on economic, social, and cultural rights, and another one on civil and political rights. I'll talk more on civil and political rights, which you know very well. We have, what are they? We have the right to information, the right of opinion, the freedom of speech, we have freedom of movement, or we had freedom of movement, we have freedom to be protected by the law, and we can also own property, for example. But when there is an emergency, isn't it normal that we have to give up some of those rights? Because basically, When we speak of rights, we have to remember that each citizen in a democratic country has also responsibilities. We can remember these 3 R's: rights, respect, responsibility. If we carry on thinking of ourselves, we will, in fact, create a lot of havoc. We will jeopardize the future for our own children and grandchildren. I want to speak of another issue on the same lines. Look at what some people do when they don't respect the environment. Look at what is happening now, that people have been skeptical about climate change. Do you watch television every day? Do you see what's happening in European countries? Do you see what's happening everywhere? So all the time, some people, maybe not all, but some people, still think of themselves. They still think, but it is my right to do this. It is my right to act in this way, without thinking that when you have a human right, it stops where the other person's human right starts. So basically, we should all remember that we have these responsibilities as well as the rights to go with the responsibilities. Of course, governments must be very wary not to overdo things. Like, for example, I started with telling you about taking your homes to convert them into quarantine places. That seems a bit exaggerated, although we know some countries have tried to do it. But I'm sure most governments can find better solutions. We don't think the COVID is over. We still hear of cases nowadays. But there is another issue I want to talk about. So we've spoken about the COVID, we've spoken about the environment, about the climate. Now let's speak about freedom of speech. When we speak, when we express our ideas, we have to do it in a certain way. But we know that there are people who are using the media, for example, especially the social media, to speak about other people, even if that means that they are doing wrong to these people. So basically, we have to know that at the end of the day, there's government, there's the people, but there's each and every one of us. In order to protect our own rights, we must know that there are limits to these rights. And governments must know that they also have limits to how far they can go to attack our rights, whether it's for good reason or bad reason. But at the end of the day, we are our only defenders. We can ask for amendments of laws, of the Constitution. We can ask for better protection. For example, we can ask for a better mechanism to protect our rights. There are mechanisms. Sometimes they're not independent. So at the end of the day, we can only count on ourselves. And maybe if we are together, we can mobilize and we can make things change. But we must beware. Even when we do that, there will be some people who will be joining the bandwagon for selfish reasons and for secret agendas. So we must beware and be wise. Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. Thank you.